Chapter 24:16. On one side, Shui Leihan and Wu Chenfeng had already walked to one side and were talking telepathically. However, as the two of them talked, they seemed to have an argument. The speed of their conversation was obviously increasing, and the argument was also gradually escalating. Wu Chenfeng shook his head repeatedly, but Shui Leihan pressed on. In the end, Wu Chenfeng stuck out a finger awkwardly. Shui Leihan didn't back down and stuck out 5 fingers. Wu Chenfeng shook his head violently, so Shui Leihan bent down 1 finger and turned it into 4. Wu Chenfeng continued to shake his head, refusing to comply. Shui Leihan bent down another finger and turned it into 3. Mo Qingwu watched curiously and asked in a low voice, "What are they doing? Playing finger-guessing games?" As soon as she said that, Shui Qi and Chen Liuyun staggered at the same time. Shui Leihan and Wu Chenfeng, who were playing finger-guessing games, also subconsciously looked over. Chu Yang almost sneered. 2 Dominator-level characters, how could they just play finger-guessing games when discussing matters? Mo Qingwu's conjecture is indeed a little too outrageous, but Wu Chenfeng's expression was unusually miserable, looking like he was about to go crazy, but he still stubbornly stuck out 1 finger. Shui Leihan also seemed to be angry, but facing Wu Chenfeng's unyielding attitude, he had no choice but to bend down another finger, turning the number into 2. Wu Chenfeng was still shaking his head, still unwilling to give in. Shui Leihan was furious. He actually said loudly, "Wu Chenfeng, you have to give me face. When you were in charge of the dead souls in the heavenly continent, it was I who appointed you. Later on, when you competed for the title of World Master of the 10 Directions Underground, in order to let you win, the Eastern Royal Heavens spent countless manpower and resources. Why is it so difficult to ask you to do such a small thing now? You keep making excuses. Why don't you think about it? The Eastern Royal Heavens was obviously trying to repay his kindness. It seemed to be able to make Shui Leihan do this. Obviously, this matter had already exceeded the scope of what ordinary people could imagine. Wu Chenfeng's originally good expression completely turned bitter. He nodded helplessly. "All right, 2 it is." Shui Leihan snorted and said, "3? Wu Chenfeng lowered his head dejectedly. "You might as well kill me." Shui Leihan laughed loudly. The rock-paper-scissors game had come to an end, but the situation on the other side was still in the ascendant. Chen Liuyun's beautiful eyes kept drifting towards Zi Xiecheng. There was a strange expression in his eyes that made people ponder over it. He seemed to be smiling but not smiling. Zi Xiecheng, on the other hand, was looking at the sky with a look of indifference. Chen Liuyun finally smiled and said, "This little sister looks very familiar. Where have we met before?" Zi Xiecheng said, "Humph." The meaning behind this voice was extremely complicated, and it contained a hint of hostility. However, Chen Liuyun did not feel offended in the slightest. Instead, he chuckled. He said, "This voice is also very familiar. We must have seen it before." His tone was very certain. Zi Xiecheng was getting more and more unhappy. She shouted angrily, "What are you trying to say? What do you mean by familiar with this and that? Are you showing off how good your memory is?" Chen Liuyun giggled and said, "The memory of that battle in the Black Blood Forest is still fresh in our minds. Lord Zi's power is really earth-shattering. But I've never thought that Lord Zi is actually a woman, and such a beautiful and moving woman at that. Moreover," she laughed and said, "Furthermore, this jealousy. It's actually so big." Zi Xiecheng's face instantly turned red, and she was speechless for a long time. Actually, when Chen Feng and Chen Liuyun appeared, Zi Xiecheng recognized their identities at first glance. However, she did not immediately go forward to acknowledge them. It was because of this awkward matter in between. During that battle, Zi Xiecheng had been shrouded in black fog from start to end, and did not reveal her true appearance at all. She originally thought that as long as she did not take the initiative to reveal this matter, Wu Chenfeng and his wife might not be able to see through her identity. Now that she was exposed by Chen Liuyun, she could not help but blush. She said angrily, "I also did not expect that the 2 of you who lost to me back then would be so different now. You actually became the Lord of the 10 Directions world in the Heaven Imperial Court. It is only right that I look up to the 2 of you." Chen Luyun laughed and walked forward, not caring about Zi Sheqing's cold face. He directly held her hand and said gently, "The reason why the two of us are where we are today is all thanks to that battle back then. It was after that battle that the two of us realized something, and that was why His Majesty the East Emperor looked for us. Finally, we became the lords of the Heaven Imperial Court today. To be honest, besides His Majesty the East Emperor, we also have to thank you, Lord Zi, for being where we are today." Zi Sheqing forced a smile and said, "Both of you have really improved your cultivation during this period of time. How can I dare to accept the title of Lord Zi now?" Chen Luyun smiled bitterly and shook his head. "There is no lack of resources for cultivation underground. Furthermore, we have such an identity now that we can absorb the spiritual energy of souls from all directions. That is why we can improve so quickly. However, such a cultivation process is not worth mentioning. It was obvious that there were still areas that weren't satisfactory. This bitterness was something that couldn't be told to outsiders." Chen Luyun looked at Zi Sheqing with sincerity and actually looked at her with some envy. He said, "However, although Lord Zi did not improve very quickly during this period of time, you no longer have the original demonic aura in you. From now on, you have embarked on a bright and smooth path to the Supreme Tao. That is truly something worth celebrating." Upon hearing that, Zi Sheqing subconsciously let out a long breath. She also smiled bitterly and said with some lingering fear, "This process is just as you said. It is not worth mentioning." Chen Luyun blinked his beautiful eyes in understanding. Suddenly, he leaned close to Zi Sheqing's ear and asked softly, "But I wonder, what is the relationship between Lord Zi and the Heavenly Emperor of Zi Xiao then?" Upon hearing this, Zi Sheqing could not help but widen her eyes in astonishment. She was stunned for a moment and did not know what to say. After a while, she said, "Your question is a little strange. How can I have any relationship with the Heavenly Emperor of Zi Xiao? The Heavenly Emperor of Zi Xiao fell 1,000,000 years ago, and but from this 1,000,000 years, there is still an unreachable distance." She paused and said, taking a step back, "The world I was originally in was actually not this world of the Heavenly Imperial Court. Between the two of us, there is really no way we can fight, right?" Chen Luyun looked at Zi Sheqing's face and saw that her face was full of doubts. Obviously, these doubts came from the bottom of her heart and there was no element of pretense. He could not help but be stunned and said, "This, is it not?" Wu Chenfeng walked over at the right time and said, "Let's go." He turned and said to Shui Leihan, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. I will not forget about that matter." Shui Leihan nodded lightly. Wu Chenfeng and his wife greeted Chu Yang. Wu Chenfeng smiled and said, "Sword Master, don't forget, the Heavenly Imperial Court, the Lake of Despair." Then, the husband and wife rose with the wind and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Even after they left, they did not forget to remind Chu Yang again. Could it be that there was really some secret? Shui Leihan smiled bitterly. "This guy is still biased towards you. I originally did not intend to reveal the secret so early." Chu Yang asked doubtfully, "Secret? What secret?" Shui Leihan smiled. "You will know when you get there. Even if I explain it now, without the actual thing in front of me, what's the point?" Chu Yang was stunned. What was going on? Did they have to be so mysterious? Why were they trying to be so mysterious? Zi Sheqing frowned and asked Chu Yang, "That secret can only be revealed when we return to the lower realm. Thinking too much about it now will only create more trouble for ourselves. But I don't understand why that supreme martial artist Liu Yun would actually ask me about my relationship with the Heavenly Emperor of the Purple Clouds. His Majesty and I did not know each other at all. When he died, I probably had not reincarnated yet. We were separated by so many years, how could there be any relationship? This is simply inexplicable. It makes me so flustered. I really don't know what to say." As Zi Sheqing spoke, there was an inexplicable smile on her face. Obviously, in her opinion, this matter that Chen Luyun was talking about was an extremely ridiculous matter. If Supreme Martial Artist Luyun still had some sense in his mind, he would not say such retarded words. But she just had to say it. If that was not retarded, then what was? Even the stupidest person would be able to know that two people who were separated by hundreds of thousands of years, especially one who was born hundreds of thousands of years after the other had died, it was absolutely impossible for there to be any relationship between these two people. But when Zi Sheqing said this, Donghuang Shueleihan was actually unexpectedly stunned. Donghuang Sheqing originally had his back facing Zi Sheqing and was about to say something to Chu Yang. But at this moment, everyone felt that this Donghuang Sheqing's entire body suddenly stiffened. As if something unbelievable had happened to him, he stood stiffly in front of Chu Yang just like that. After a long time, he suddenly turned around. Because his neck turned too abruptly, it made a catcher sound. Very strangely, he came in front of Zi Sheqing. His pair of eyes stared at Zi Sheqing's face carefully. He looked so attentively and carefully. Slowly, this Donghuang Sheqing's eyes actually turned a little red. He carefully looked at Zi Sheqing's eyes, eyebrows, face, nose, lips and chin. The more he looked, the more agitated he became. Finally, he actually clapped his hands fiercely. Chu Yang was stunned. Huh! But he saw that Shueleihan's eyes were still focused, but his lips were trembling. After a long time, he finally asked, "Misty, where did you come from in the past?" When he asked this question, there was a deep sense of disbelief in the depths of Shueleihan's eyes. There was also a little bit of unbelievable joy that was slowly rising. This little bit of joy seemed to have added a lot of vitality to his body. Chapter 24:17. Zi Sheqing smiled faintly. "Does your Majesty Donghuang also have such doubts? What's wrong with the heavens, haha?" If the person in front of her was not Donghuang Shueleihan, Zi Sheqing even wanted to laugh at him. What kind of thoughts and logic did these people have? Did they have any brains at all? Even an idiot would know that this was impossible, right? Answer me, where did you come from? Answer me. Shueleihan asked persistently. His voice was actually a little anxious. "I don't belong to this Heaven Imperial Court world, nor am I a native of this Heaven Imperial Court world." Zi Sheqing was helpless. She said concisely, "My hometown is a world that has now been destroyed. It's extremely far away from here. As for how far, it's hard to describe with numbers. Also, I'm not a human, but a demon. The reason why I can transform into a human is because..." Shueleihan interrupted her. "What I want to know is not these. These are all not important. What I want to know is, where did you come from?" Zi Sheqing couldn't help but be stunned. Her expression was extremely strange. It was no wonder that Zi Sheqing was so surprised. In her mind, she had clearly explained her origins just now. Why would Donghuang still ask her where she came from? Could it be that this Lord Donghuang's brain was flooded with water? Otherwise, why couldn't he even get the main point of a question? He kept asking. Shueleihan didn't seem to be surprised by Zi Sheqing's surprised expression. He took a deep breath again and closed his eyes, as if to calm his emotions. Then, he said, "Miss Zi, can you tell me in detail about your past? As much as possible." He looked at Zi Sheqing, who was still in shock, as if he did not know where to start. He laughed bitterly and said, "Miss Zi, you may not know this, but with my current cultivation and the ability to calculate, I'm very good at it. Although I may not be able to see through every detail, but it's roughly the same. But for you, I can't see through you at all. It seems that there's a very special thing on your body. It blocks all the prying eyes from the outside world." "Oh, I see," Zi Sheqing said thoughtfully. "Well, after hearing Donghuang's words, I do remember some things. In the past, I did find some strange things about me, but I didn't know what was going on because I didn't know the whole story. Also, it never affected his body, so there was no need to pay attention to it anymore. It was only when His Majesty Donghuang mentioned it that I suddenly remembered." Shueleihan said solemnly, "Miss Zi, I want to know about your past, all of your past." He pondered for a while and said, "To me, this is perhaps very, very important." "So, I understand." Zi Sheqing smiled sweetly. "There's nothing unspeakable about my past. It's fine to talk about it." Shueleihan smiled and nodded. "If that's the case, please tell me, Miss Zi. I'm all ears." After fighting for hundreds of years, although I was strong, I would still be injured. Sometimes, a person's strength is limited, and so is a demon's strength. When I was injured, I would return to the cave to recuperate. Then, I found out that only I could enter the cave. Even the top expert of that world couldn't take a single step into the cave. Regardless of whether it was water, fire, or smoke, all methods were useless. To put it in a more exaggerated way, it was invulnerable to all methods. After that, with a considerable improvement in my strength, I was really invincible in that world. Gradually, no one and no force could do anything to me. But I felt tired of it. Perhaps it's the saying that being invincible is the loneliest. At this point, Shui Leihan interrupted her and said, "Miss Z, do you know how far that world is from the Heaven Imperial Court?" Zi Xiecheng thought about it seriously. Then, she shook her head in confusion. "I don't know, I really don't know. It's a distance that can't be described with specific numbers. It's really too far." Shui Leihan nodded and didn't interrupt her. He listened to her continue. "When I was sure that I was invincible and had no opponents, I wandered around. But by chance, I discovered that there were still some very powerful hidden experts in that world. So, I had opponents again and started to fight with those hidden experts. Another few hundred years passed like this. After defeating all those people, I found that I had reached a rather high level. It was also at that time that the heavens suddenly released killing intent. That world encountered a completely irresistible natural disaster. The entire world was completely destroyed in an extremely short period of time. Countless meteorites fell from the sky and smashed the entire world. Back then, I thought that I was already invincible in the world, but in the face of such a natural disaster, I had no power to resist at all. At this point, there was a heartfelt fear in the depths of Zi Xiecheng's eyes. Everyone in the whole world was in a state of panic and despair, including me. I tried to resist but knew that I couldn't, so I could only wait for the arrival of death. But at this moment, a big hand suddenly descended from the sky and grabbed me. Then, I flew up to the sky with that big hand. When I looked down, I realized that the world I was in was already torn apart, full of holes and devastation. The next moment, the whole world became pieces of debris and transformed into new meteorites or shooting stars in the sky, gradually disappearing from this world. Then, I found out some things that I couldn't understand at all. The world I was in was actually just a big rock suspended in the sky. When this big rock broke apart due to some irresistible factors, most of the remaining rock fragments would become shooting stars. There were so many shooting stars in the sky and they were so beautiful. But before that, no one knew that those shooting stars were actually a continent like the world we lived in, born due to destruction. What's more, no one knew that those beautiful shooting stars symbolized the death of countless lives every moment. The meaning behind those beautiful shooting stars was actually death. Moreover, it was the death of billions and billions of lives. Zi Xiecheng said, "That was the realization I had at that moment, a realization that I've never forgotten." Shui Leihan's eyes continued to show heartfelt pity. He sighed softly but didn't interrupt Zi Xiecheng's narration. He continued to listen quietly. Mo Qingwu, who was also listening, subconsciously moved closer to Zi Xiecheng. She hugged Zi Xiecheng's arm and looked at her silently. Zi Xiecheng smiled comfortingly and hugged Mo Qingwu's arm tightly as well. Then, she continued slowly, "After that world was destroyed, I was brought to another strange place by that unknown hand. It was a world full of vitality, full of spiritual flowers and strange plants. But there were no living creatures in that world. No, it should be said that there were no human beings." Chapter 24:18. How could there be so many heavenly treasures? It was a huge world that was most suitable for humans to live in, but there was no life at all. I have to say that this was a very strange thing. However, at that time, I was limited by my own experience and didn't realize this point. To me at that time, no one was competing with me for those heavenly treasures. It was a great thing that I couldn't ask for. Countless heavenly treasures could only be enjoyed by me alone. Therefore, my strength improved by leaps and bounds in that new world. Almost every day, I was improving. It's not an exaggeration to say that my improvement at that time was rapid. At this point, Shui Leihan suddenly asked, "What about the person who saved you? Do you still remember what he looked like?" "I don't know. Or rather, I don't know how to describe it." Zi Sheqing smiled bitterly and said, "If I must describe him, it's only his black clothes and his extreme coldness. Next, it's only that tyrannical power that could destroy heaven and earth. It was as if he could destroy a world instantly with just one look. Although I've seen him before and can recognize him if I see him again in the future, if you ask me to describe his appearance, I really can't." She looked at Shui Leihan and smiled apologetically. She said, "Your Majesty, although your cultivation has reached the peak of this world and my strength is not enough to make any judgment about you, I really think that you're still very far away from that person. There's an unreachable distance. Just like the distance between the world I was born in and this heavenly imperial court. Perhaps just one look from that person is enough to make you unable to withstand it." These words were rather blunt. Although Zi Sheqing had tried her best to be tactful, the meaning behind her words was clear. "Shui Leihan, don't think that you're quite impressive in this heavenly imperial court. Compared to that expert I know, you're nothing. You can't even compare to a strand of hair." Unexpectedly, Shui Leihan didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he laughed out loud. He shook his head and said, "That kind of person, in this whole universe, I don't know if there's a handful of them. I'm quite satisfied to be able to compete with him. If he's willing to kill me with just one look, it might be my honor." His tone right now. He was completely like a tolerant and gentle father who was coaxing his naughty little daughter. Zi Sheqing chuckled and said, "Anyway, that person is an ultimate expert who has completely exceeded my understanding of his abilities. After he sent me to that world, he left on his own. I tore a piece of black cloth from his sleeve and tied it around my neck. In the end, that piece of cloth actually became my strongest weapon. In any case, no weapon has ever been able to cut through my cloth belt. No, not to mention being cut off, there was not even the slightest bit of injury. It's as if it's an indestructible supreme divine object. No matter who it's facing, it can still fight." As she spoke, a black strip of cloth appeared in her hand. It was about 3 feet long and was only as wide as a palm. She held it in her hand and it was no different from an ordinary strip of cloth. There was nothing special about it at all. However, as Zi Sheqing injected her cultivation into it, the strip of cloth actually continued to extend, as if it could extend endlessly. At this moment, the cloth belt. It was like a black cloud that filled the entire world and covered the sun. Shui Leihan's calm and gentle eyes finally couldn't help but tremble. Shui Qi's face turned pale. It's just a piece of cloth that person tore off casually from his own robe, and it's actually such a heaven-defying divine object. Shui Qi didn't believe it and stretched out her hand to tear it. However, she realized that even though she had already used all her strength, this piece of cloth was still completely unaffected. Shui Qi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. She really felt a trace of fear that came from the bottom of her heart. Zi Sheqing smiled and said, "Until I've passed through countless planes, until now, this piece of cloth is still intact. Perhaps, even if it's the end of the world, even if the world doesn't exist anymore, this piece of cloth will still be natural. In that strange world, I succeeded in my cultivation and was able to transform into a human. When I was going through the tribulation of transformation, it was this piece of cloth that protected me and prevented me from turning into ashes. And here, when I decided to shed my demon form and completely transform into a human, it was also this piece of cloth that protected me and completed the whole process of transforming into a heavenly demon. If it wasn't for the protection of this piece of cloth, I'm afraid that I would have died countless times. So when I had the ability to cross the void, I wanted to find my benefactor." Zi Sheqing said softly, not for anything else, but to personally say thank you to him. With his cultivation, perhaps if I want to repay his kindness, it's just a simple thank you. After that, I searched for countless planes, as if I was being deliberately guided. I experienced many worlds and also experienced countless battles and dangers. Finally, I arrived at the Heavenly Imperial Court. At that time, after staying in the Heavenly Imperial Court for a period of time, I realized that I had the feeling again, so I set off again. In the end, I finally arrived at the heavenly imperial court. To me, it was just an inconspicuous plane. But it was in that plane that I accidentally encountered space turbulence and thus lost most of my strength. And the most ridiculous thing was that my benefactor's aura had always been guiding me. After guiding me to the heavenly imperial court, it completely disappeared. I couldn't feel anything anymore. And then, it was the experience until now. Zi Xueqing's beautiful eyes were filled with deep doubts. I never understood why my final destination was actually there. Xue Leihan was silent for a long time. He thought of the two people he had met that day. One was in black, the other in white. The person in white created the Calamity Sword. And could the person Zi Xueqing met be the one in black? Thinking of this, Xue Leihan asked a question. I roughly understand. Miss Zi, since you don't have parents and don't know your background, then, why is your surname Zi? Zhong, Wang, Li, Zhao, why did you choose to be Zi? Xue Leihan asked, did you give yourself this name, or did your benefactor give it to you? Zi Xueqing was stunned. After a while, she said, I don't know. I've been wearing purple since I was young. Of course, this isn't the main reason. It's because, since I was born, I had a feeling that my surname should be Zi. Xue Leihan looked at Zi Xueqing with some relief and let out a long, long sigh. As if he was relieved of something, he smiled and said, little girl. If I'm not wrong, you were actually born from an egg, right? Chu Yang's mouth twitched. He thought to himself that this Emperor Donghuang seemed to have lost his mind. A ferret was not a chicken, a duck, or a goose. How could there be a ferret that was born from an egg? Xue Qi pursed her lips and squinted her eyes. Big brother, you're muddle-headed. Don't be surnamed Xue in the future. Your surname is Hu. You're not afraid of embarrassing the Xue family, but I am. Xue Leihan didn't even blink. He shouted, if you don't shut up, you can get lost. Xue Qi pursed her lips and muttered, you only know how to show off your power to me. But she shrank her neck and stood aside, not daring to speak anymore. Zi Xueqing's eyes widened. She looked at Xue Leihan with some surprise and said, you. How did you know? Our ferret clan has never had a case of being born from an egg, but I'm a special case. So I've never told anyone about it. Xue Leihan smiled in relief, laughing to his heart's content. As he laughed, tears suddenly welled up in his eyes. He stood up and suddenly let out a sorrowful howl. His voice rolled out, as if he was venting the pain of 1,000,000 years in his howl. He looked at the sky and murmured, brother. You've left a trace of your bloodline in the end. There's still a bit of your continuation in this world. After saying this, he suddenly burst into tears of joy and sorrow. Tears flowed down profusely. Xue Qi stood up with a swoosh. Her expression was also very sad. Looking at the crying Xue Leihan, she murmured sadly, when the heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zi Hao, died in battle. Big brother only shed tears, but he didn't cry out loud. He hasn't cried for at least 1,000,000 years. What's wrong with him today? However, the smart Chu Yang vaguely realized something. His expression was solemn. When he looked at Zi Xueqing again, his gaze also gradually became a little strange. That was respect, surprise, and a little admiration. These feelings had nothing to do with the feelings between a man and a woman. Instead, it was because of a loyal soul from 1,000,000 years ago. At this moment, the Lord of the Eastern Royal Heavens, the majesty, dignity, and poise of a ruler of a generation were all gone. As if he had gone crazy, he first burst into tears, inexplicably sorrowful. Then, he laughed loudly, as if he was extremely happy. His laughter pierced through the clouds and split the sky. No one would have thought that this person who was crying and laughing like a madman was actually the current ruler of the Eastern Royal Heavens. Donghuang Xue Leihan. Zi Xueqing was completely stunned by the scene in front of her. Her face turned white and red. Suddenly, she shouted, "You've all got it wrong. There must be a mistake. I have nothing to do with the heavenly emperor of purple clouds. From head to toe, inside and out, we have nothing to do with each other." Xue Leihan laughed and said, "No, you have something to do with each other. You have a great relationship with Zi Hao, an inseparable relationship. Back then, Zihao had a close female friend who was from the demon clan. Her origin was from the soul-devouring Martin clan. However, although this kind of strange clan had a long life, their reproduction ability was extremely weak. Back then, this demon lady was hailed as one of the 3 great beauties of the demon emperor heavens. Chapter 24:19. Xue Leihan smiled and said, Soul-devouring Martin is the original name of the demon race, so it's not well known. In the Heavenly Imperial Court, it's mostly known as Purple Martin, Purple Divine Martin, Celestial Martin, and so on. There are many names. But there aren't many who truly understand this kind of race. This is because they do not look any different from ordinary Martin species. Although they have an unusually long lifespan, their bodies are extremely weak, even weaker than ordinary Martin species. However, their intelligence far surpasses that of ordinary demon clan members, and they are practically the top of the demon clan. Besides, there's another difference between this kind of soul-devouring Martin and the ordinary Martin race. When the soul-devouring Martin is born, it's not a fetus but an egg. Xue Leihan smiled lightly and said, back then, Zihao and that demon girl were entangled in love and hatred, fighting each other for thousands of years. But no one would have thought that the 2 of them would actually become a pair of close friends and quarrelsome lovers. It is said that when Zihao was in danger, the demon clan lady rushed to his side from thousands of miles away. She broke through layers and layers of blockades. In the end, when Zi Xiaotian fell, she was still by his side and died in battle before Zihao. Xue Leihan let out a long sigh as he looked up at the sky. They've never stayed together for long periods of time like ordinary couples. They've always been apart more than together, meeting and parting in haste. However, in times of danger, they rushed over from hundreds of thousands of miles away to die together with you and walk through the spring together. Mo Qingwu's heart trembled. She asked longingly, may I know the name of this senior from the Martin race? Xue Leihan's gaze was a little distant. He answered softly, her name is Ling Piaoping. People call her Goddess Piaoping. Goddess Piaoping. Mo Qingwu and Zi Xieching murmured at the same time. Ren Pingting, a duckweed in the martial world who can overturn rivers and seas. Her heart can move heaven and earth, and her Piaoping sword can frighten gods and ghosts. Xue Leihan said coldly, Ling Piaoping was not only one of the 3 great beauties of the Demon Emperor Heaven. She was also the 3rd expert of the Demon Emperor Heaven, second only to the Demon Emperor and Demon Empress. Ling Piaoping. Mo Qingwu said softly, for the Heavenly Emperor of Zi Xiao to have such a confidant and a companion in the afterlife, his life can be considered to have not been in vain. As she spoke, her bright eyes looked at Chu Yang's face and she smiled brightly. Chu Yang's heart. Then, he smiled in response. This gaze seemed to convey a clear message, if one day, you are also at the end of your road like Zihao, I will also die with you like this senior Ling Piaoping. Side by side on the path of the sun, hand in hand on the path to the netherworld. At this moment, Zi Xieching felt an indescribable sense of dizziness. Ling Piaoping. The moment that name appeared, she felt an intense pain that came from the depths of her soul. She furrowed her brows tightly and said, the difference between us is close to 1,000,000 years. Is it possible? Is it possible? His tone was full of doubt. However, she could vaguely sense that there seemed to be a purple-clothed man in a wide robe with wide sleeves. He had the sun and moon on his shoulders and the stars on his body. His wide shoulders seemed to be able to support the world. That gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the past and present. It was filled with dignity and kindness. He had a dignified and righteous aura, an upright and awe-inspiring aura, an unyielding and lofty character, and an aura of a sovereign descending upon the world. Beside this purple-clothed man, there was a slender and delicate woman in white. Her features were picturesque and she was a feast for the eyes. She snuggled up to the purple-clothed man like a little bird. Her watery eyes seemed to be able to pierce through time and space and watch her affectionately. That gaze was filled with love, longing, and heartfelt reluctance. Who were this man and woman? The man had a heroic bearing and an unparalleled dignity. However, he did not exist in her memory. As for the beautiful woman, She gave her an indescribable sense of familiarity and closeness. It was as if she had seen her every moment before. However, she was a weak woman. When had she ever seen her? Xi Xiecheng suddenly felt that something in the depths of her soul had suddenly broken. It was as if a seal that had existed for a long time had cracked open without any warning. An indescribable feeling of sadness suddenly welled up in her heart. Shui Leihan carefully observed Xi Xiecheng's expression from the side. He said slowly, "As long as an oviparous soul-devouring ferret lays an egg, it will imprint its own soul mark into the egg to give birth to its offspring. Moreover, she can set the birth time of her offspring. Either she can entrust it to someone else, or she can meet someone else." Shui Leihan said softly, "All in all, it's not a very difficult thing to let her offspring hatch after a long period of time. Of course, the difficulty of hundreds of thousands of years in between is indeed a little high, but, as long as she has the corresponding heavenly treasure and that strange cave, especially with the help of that mysterious man in black, then everything is not a problem at all. It's just that, what right does she have to be able to ask that person to help her? After that, as the offspring slowly grow up, as the seals on those souls are unlocked, and they come into contact with the inherited skills of their clan, as well as the life experiences of their mother, they use this method to guide their offspring so that they won't go astray. This is a kind of inheritance of the clan's soul. Of course, this is also a kind of preparation for a rainy day. Because, living in such a world where the weak are prey to the strong, they can't guarantee that they will die one day. And they will usually make arrangements for their offspring before they die. This is their nature. It's also the same kind of love that all mothers have for their children. Your current cultivation probably hasn't reached the level that Ling Piaoping reached back then. So, there are some things that you still don't know. And, that's also a kind of protection for you. They don't want you to know things that will make you worry too early. Shui Leihan said softly, "So, for you to know these things today, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for you. The main reason is because of me. Today, I've really been too agitated." Shui Leihan sighed deeply. Xi Xiecheng's plump lips trembled a little. She said, "That senior Ling Piaoping. What was the martial technique that she was best at in her life?" Shui Leihan's eyes were fixed on her. He said softly, "Ling Piaoping's most famous divine technique was a divine technique that belonged exclusively to her. She named it Heavenly Song and Graceful Dance. At that time, it was among the experts of our generation. There was no one who didn't dream of this heavenly song and graceful dance. Heavenly song and graceful dance, in a dreamy and beautiful scene, it allows one to die contentedly, with a satisfied and happy face even in death. This is the most magical part of the heavenly song and graceful dance technique. This technique is somewhat similar to Xie Danxiong's viburnum flower. However, viburnum flower is still a hidden weapon at the end of the day. Heavenly song and graceful dance is a completely different kind of technique in terms of its origin and attribute." Shui Leihan explained in detail. Xi Xiecheng seemed to be relieved. She said, "I don't know about this. I've never dabbled in it before." Shui Leihan said slowly, "Don't be so anxious. I haven't finished my words." Later on, after Ling Piaoping's name shook the world, the people of the world felt that it was a little disrespectful to add the words heavenly song and graceful dance to this beautiful woman. Therefore, they named her Heavenly Song and Graceful Dance Divine Technique. It was respectfully called Tianwu. Shui Leihan said word by word. Then, he turned to look at Mo Qingwu and said softly, "This technique has been extinct in the world for a long time. It's just that not long ago, it actually reappeared in Qingwu. I think, it should be you who imparted it to her." Mo Qingwu was suddenly stunned. And on the other side, Chu Yang leaped and caught Xi Xiecheng in his arms. Because the moment the three words Tianwu came out of his mouth, Xi Xiecheng's delicate body trembled and she actually fell backward softly. She had actually fainted. Everyone was in a flurry and tried to save her. With Xi Xiecheng's current cultivation, it could be said that she had completely reached a profound level where even if a mountain collapsed in front of her, her countenance would not change. At this moment, to actually be able to shock her to the point of fainting with just one sentence, it could be seen how big of a shock these few words had on her. After a long time, Zi Sheqing woke up in Chu Yang's arms. Her face was ghastly pale and her eyes were lifeless, almost as if she was seriously ill. Shui Leihan leaned in front of her face, his face full of concern. "Girl, how are you? Are you feeling better?" That unusual sense of urgency was clearly expressed. There was also a hint of caution in it. For such a situation to happen to Donghuang, not only was it strange, it was simply unprecedented. "I want to hear you finish telling this story," Zi Sheqing said softly. "This." Shui Leihan was a little hesitant. He said, "You're not feeling well now. Why don't we rest for a night and continue tomorrow?" "No need," Zi Sheqing said firmly. "I want to hear it now." Shui Leihan smiled bitterly and looked at Chu Yang helplessly, obviously hoping that Chu Yang would help to persuade her. Now, only Chu Yang had this side. Chu Yang spread out his hands. "Don't look at me. What can I do? This is all your own trouble. I can't help you. Besides, you've already provoked my wife to such a state. It's already very brotherly of me not to settle the score with you. Don't be greedy and want me to persuade you." Chu Yang thought to himself, "If I listen to you and dissuade you at this time, I reckon I won't be able to live in the future." Shui Leihan was momentarily stunned. He sighed helplessly, not knowing whether he was lamenting that he had made a bad friend or something else. He frowned and really couldn't make up his mind. He didn't know whether he should tell her or not. Zi Sheqing snuggled in Chu Yang's arms, her expression extremely delicate. In Chu Yang's impression, Zi Sheqing had always been strong and unyielding. It was undoubtedly the first time that he had seen her display such weakness and helplessness. But at this moment, if Zi Sheqing could see herself, she would suddenly realize that her current appearance was extremely similar to the woman she had vaguely felt. Even her current expression and face were the same. Somehow, there seemed to be a man in purple in a loose robe with the sun and moon on his shoulders and the stars on his body. His broad shoulders seemed to be supporting the heaven and earth. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the past and present, looking at her just like that. Beside this man in purple, there was a slim and delicate woman in white. Her features were picturesque. She snuggled softly beside him and looked at him affectionately. Chapter 24:20. Seeing that Shui Leihan had actually stopped talking, Zi Sheqing leaned into Chu Yang's arms and suddenly smiled sadly. She recited softly, "Heavenly dance, dance of the heavens, the first dance is a dance of heaven and earth, the second dance is a dance of darkness and darkness, the third dance is a dance of the cold moon, the fourth dance moves the power of the universe, the fifth dance moves the vicissitudes of life and death, the seventh dance moves the heavens. Heavenly dance, the first dance moves the heavens." Shui Leihan's lips trembled as he listened to Zi Sheqing's soft recitation. His eyes were blank and his face was even more gloomy as he sighed continuously. Is this the heavenly dance? Martial technique formula? Zi Sheqing's limpid eyes stared intently at Shui Leihan's face. But when she asked this question, she paused a few times. She was even a little out of breath. It could be seen how agitated Zi Sheqing was when she asked this question. Shui Leihan's eyes also flashed with extremely complicated emotions. He said softly, "That's right. This is the heavenly dance. Martial technique formula." Zi Sheqing let out a soft moan and almost fainted again. She smiled bleakly and said weakly, "No wonder. There were a few tables and some furniture in that cave. They were all made of top-grade star iron and 7-star sandalwood. However, after I was born, when I learned how to distinguish them, I found that they were all rusty. Some of them had even completely decayed and turned into powder. I didn't know that at that time. I didn't know that those things had already proved that my identity was not ordinary. Could it be that from the time I was placed in that cave until I was born, hundreds of thousands of years had already passed? That's right, if not for the erosion of countless years, how could such things have decayed? Zi Sheqing muttered to herself unconsciously. It seemed like she was also asking a question. But she didn't know who she was asking. It also seemed like she was answering her own question. The answer was already clear in her heart. Shui Leihan didn't know how to respond to the person in front of him. He could only let out a long sigh. That's right, beside me. There were also many other things. But when I was born, those things had long been indistinguishable from what they were originally. After so many years, what can last forever? Zi Sheqing smiled bitterly. Chu Yang could clearly feel it. At this moment, Zi Sheqing was just like a helpless child. She was all alone, walking in this vast world with no one to rely on. Chu Yang thought for a moment. He put more strength into his arms and hugged her even tighter in his arms. He used his body heat and strength to tell her, "You are not alone. Now and in the future, he would never be lonely. You still have me." Leaning against Chu Yang's thick chest, Zi Sheqing seemed to feel a sense of solid support. She couldn't help but shrink deeper into his embrace. Her delicate body actually trembled a little. He was speechless for a while. Zi Sheqing sighed softly and said softly, "I originally thought that I had no parents and was born and raised by the heavens. Just like that, I was left alone in this world, with no one to care for me, no one to love me, and no one to rely on, and no identity or background. So, every time I see other children acting coquettishly in their mother's arms, holding their father's hand and jumping around, I can only be envious. There was one time. When I was slaughtering a tiger tribe, I saw a tiger using its own body to protect a newborn tiger cub. When it couldn't resist, it simply used its own body to receive my attack. It would rather be killed by me. When it didn't let me hurt the cub, I suddenly felt a heartfelt envy, and let them go. That day, after I left, I secretly returned and hid in a dark place. I enviously looked at the cub nestled in the arms of the big tiger, moaning with concern and licking each other's wounds with their tongues. At that time, I even wished that I wasn't that strong person who could exterminate a tribe with a wave of his hand, but that well-protected cub. 2 drops of tears silently fell from Zi Sheqing's eyes. But such a thing will never happen to me. I will also never be able to experience that feeling. I've finally gotten used to being alone. I've gotten used to facing the storm with my bare hands. I've also gotten used to struggling on my own. When there's a strong enemy, I'll struggle to escape. When I'm happy, I'll drink alone under the moon. When I'm in pain, I'll find a place where no one else is around to comfort myself. When I'm weak, I'll constantly tell myself that in this world, there's no one other than myself who can help me, and no one is willing to help me. Because they're not my family, and they're definitely not my parents. Zi Sheqing's voice gradually became agitated, but it was still mixed with a trace of sobbing. Originally, I was already used to all of this. But now, I unexpectedly found out that I actually might have parents, and my parents were such peerless heroes who had great power over the world and ruled over the heaven. Zi Sheqing said painfully, "This feeling, before I had the time to rejoice, the cruel reality had already told me. If I were their child, I would still be an orphan, still without any relatives or friends, still all alone in this world, because they had already died millions of years ago, ha ha ha." Zi Sheqing smiled bitterly, the tears on her face flowing freely. "Such a thing, to me, is so cruel. My lifelong wish is to cry in my mother's arms and act coquettishly, and then hear my father say to me, 'No matter what trouble you have caused, Daddy will cover for you.' Such a thing, even if it's just for a moment, even if it's just a sentence, I'll be satisfied. But, in my life, there will never be such a time again. It turns out that I'm destined to have no one to depend on in my life." Seeing Zi Sheqing like this, Chu Yang's heart ached. He hugged her tightly and said softly, "No, no, you won't have no one to depend on in your life. You still have me. No matter what trouble you have caused, I will cover for you, forever." Mo Qingwu held Zi Sheqing's hand tightly and comforted her with tears in her eyes. "Sister Zi, you still have me." At the side, Shui Leihan said softly. But he said firmly, "Yes. Girl, you still have me. As long as you are willing, I will be your father. Girl, no matter whether you are willing or not, no matter what trouble you have caused, I will cover for you. Even if you want this sky to collapse." Shui Leihan raised his head to look at the dusky sky and said softly yet resolutely, As long as you are willing, this night, whether it was for Zi Sheqing or for Chu Yang, whether it was Chu Yang or Shui Leihan, It was a night of great significance and worth remembering for the rest of their lives. Shui Leihan was emotional. He thought that his brother had left the mortal world just like that, vanishing into thin air and leaving no trace in the mortal world. But he never dreamed that there was still a bloodline left behind. It was only after more than 1,000,000 years that he could see it. Who said that the heavens were heartless? Who said that the heavens were blind? Even the heavens pitied the heroes and blessed their descendant. Because of this surprise, Dong Huang was filled with motivation and gratitude towards the heavens. Zi Xieching's agitation was even more understandable. She originally thought that she was destined to be alone for the rest of her life, even though she had Chu Yang as her companion. She was not alone in life, but it was always a regret that her parents were not related by blood. Her life was incomplete, but in this unexpected place, she understood the past. Although she was sad that she could not see her parents again, she was also proud of her parents' past deeds. Although she still had regrets in her life, she was no longer incomplete and could hope for a complete life, and the other one was not direct. At most, it could be said to be an indirect party, but Chu Yang was also unforgettable. Because on that very night, Shui Leihan found an excuse to give Chu Yang a good beating. This beating was really earth-shattering. In the end, with a pale face, Shui Leihan said to a certain someone whose face was so swollen that it was almost inhuman, "You fucking big radish. Let me tell you, what is done is done. I can't do anything about it, but remember to treat my niece better in the future. If you dare to bully her, you can try." Chu Yang lay on the ground with tears streaming down his face. "Oh heavens, oh earth, why don't you open your eyes? There is actually such an unreasonable person in the world who inverts right and wrong. Have you figured out who is the one bullying who?" He pounded the ground in grief and indignation. "I thought your brother was a bastard, but it turns out you're even worse. He's a bastard at best. You're a fucking bastard. Why don't you fucking figure out the situation before you speak? Why don't you fucking beat me up for no reason? Can't you fucking be reasonable? Besides, when did she become your niece again? Damn it, Zi Hao is your brother, but am I not? Why is it that in the blink of an eye, you, as the elder brother, actually want to call yourself the father-in-law again? Do you have any shame?" Minister Chu looked extremely aggrieved. "Damn it, I really can't live through this day. Originally, when I didn't have such a backer, I had already been tortured by Zi Xieching thousands of times. Torture after torture, torture after torture. Now, I have another backer, Dong Huang. This backer is really hard to deal with. This brother of mine will definitely have enough to deal with in the future." There had never been a moment when Chu Yang yearned to be invincible as much as he did now. To be able to speak loudly, "No matter what, we are still men. No matter what, I can't let my wife's family look down on me. Wait until I have enough strength." Chu Yang stared at Shui Leihan from the corner of his eyes. This fellow's identity is constantly changing. Originally, he was Dong Huang, then he became my brother, then he was Dong Huang again. But now, he actually secretly calls himself the father-in-law of mine. Who do you think you are? Fine, I will tolerate you today. Wait until I have enough strength, I will definitely teach you, this fake father-in-law, a good lesson. Chu Yang thought fiercely in his heart. After posting the photos today, I discovered a strange phenomenon. Everyone who pursed their lips and said, "Not handsome, very ugly, not as good as me, just a little bit worse than me." Wait, all these jealous words were from men. Everyone who said that he was so handsome, that he charmed me to death, that he fell in love at first sight. All these were from female compatriots. Chapter 24-21. This night, Shui Leihan sat alone at the peak of the mountain. In front of him was a purple jade table with 3 cups on it. Shui Leihan had one in front of him and 2 opposite him. Taking out another pot of wine, Shui Leihan smiled and filled the cup opposite him. He raised his own cup and said softly, "Brother. Sister-in-law, your daughter. I've found her for you. Sister-in-law, the child has me. You can rest assured." He finished it in one gulp. Then, he spilled the wine on the snow. A water stain appeared on the snow. The water stain gradually seeped down, leaving a wet mark. Many years ago, we drank like this. I've always wanted to ask you, why must we drink at the peak of the mountain? Shui Leihan looked at the void, as if Zihao was standing there. Shui Leihan raised his cup and finished it in one gulp. At that time, you said that I like this feeling of looking down on the world. When I stand at the highest point, I will feel that the whole world is under my feet. Haha. Brother, I don't have this feeling today. I only think of drinking with you, every time at a high point. It's a pity that there's no one here to drink with me now. Shui Leihan sighed softly. He filled it again, finished it, poured it away, sighed, and filled it again. The night was full of wind and snow. Shui Leihan sat at the peak of the mountain and drank for the whole night. He drank until the sun rose in the east the next day. He was still sitting there alone, drinking alone with his brother and sister-in-law from 1,000,000 years ago. Was he celebrating the fact that he had finally found his bloodline? Was it melancholy that the hero was no longer here? Was it pity? Was it reminiscence? No one could say for sure what exactly was going on. In the pine forest at the side, Xueqi leaned against a tree and watched her elder brother drinking alone from afar. Her expression was unprecedentedly serious. He didn't move. It was as if he had become one with the pine forest. After a long time, a long howl resounded through the blue sky. Shui Leihan's voice echoed in the sky for a long time. The heavenly soldiers fought against the purple clouds, blood stained the battlefield with heroes. What's there to fear when fighting alone? A pillar of strength to be a heavenly sun, abandoning the bones of a hero, passion turned into a rainbow bridge, life and death united as family. Drifting heaven and earth accompanied the king. Abandoning his flesh and blood was not his wish, but the war drums in outer space were high. 1,000,000 years of shame, flesh and blood reuniting is a blessing today. But Donghuang still exists in this world. Who would dare to look at a girl with cold eyes? To settle the grudges of the past, let's get drunk again. What followed was only Shui Leihan's long sigh. 2 wine glasses were placed on the table. The sky was filled with white snow, and the wine was still warm, with steam rising from it. It was as if there was a couple across from them, raising their cups and drinking with Donghuang to their heart's content. Zi Sheqing leaned into Chu Yang's arms. She actually leaned against him for an entire night in such a weak state that she had never been in before. She didn't cry, she was just a little confused. How could this be? I've been used to loneliness for so many years. I've been used to being alone. How could I suddenly have parents? How did he suddenly become the descendant of a hero? Why did he suddenly have roots? But, although he had all these, they were long gone. What's more, it's been 1,000,000 years. Chu Yang and the others snuggled together. None of them opened their mouths to speak. They just leaned against each other like this. Both Chu Yang and Mo Qingwu knew that what Zi Sheqing needed the most now was actually not comfort. This accident was, of course, a good thing for Zi Sheqing. But it was just a little too sudden. As for the complicated feelings of bitterness, no one would be able to understand it. Perhaps even Zi Sheqing herself might not know clearly what she was feeling right now. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds. That legendary hero, that unparalleled hero who fought alone until the last moment, was actually her own father. This sudden fact made Zi Sheqing somewhat at a loss. But for some reason, her heart that had always been a little adrift, a little unsettled and insecure seemed to have settled down from then on. Although they're no longer around. But I still have a father and a mother after all. It's not that they don't love me, but because of the invasion of the heavenly demons. For the sake of righteousness, they didn't care about me. But before they died in battle, they still made complete arrangements for me. Even though it was for the greater good and not for the sake of personal feelings, he still made sure that I was properly settled. I should be satisfied. She thought of that cave, those inexhaustible resources. As Zi Sheqing thought about it, a wave of bitterness and happiness welled up in her heart. She couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile with tears in her eyes. At this moment, Zi Sheqing was still unusually weak, no longer as elegant as before, but still exceptionally lovable. Chu Yang hugged Zi Sheqing, but in his heart, he was thinking, Could it be that the heavenly emperor of purple clouds had already sensed the killing intent of the saint, but he couldn't back down in the face of the heavenly demons? His other children had already grown up and had reached the stage where they could fight against the heavenly demons. Only this child was still in the egg, and still needed a long time to hatch. For safety, so he sent her far away. He even set a time limit of 1,000,000 years, almost to the point of paranoia. Actually, it was to ensure that she could escape from the evil hands of the saint. But there was another problem here. Even with Zi Hao and Ling Piaoping's cultivation at that time, they might not have the ability to set the seal to 1,000,000 years. Especially when they were already in the midst of a battle, it was difficult for them to be distracted. In this way, there was another problem. The person who set the seal was someone else. That black-robed man naturally had the ability to set the seal to 1,000,000 years, but how did they invite that black-robed man? This made Chu Yang especially puzzled. He couldn't understand it at all. If that black-robed man was willing to help them settle down their children, why didn't he help them to suppress the heavenly demons? With that black-robed man's ability, he could almost make the heavenly demons disappear with a wave of his hand, but why didn't he help? This obviously didn't make sense at all. He believed that no one could watch a peerless hero die in front of him like this. At least, Chu Yang knew that he couldn't. And since that person could reach such heights, he definitely couldn't, right? One could only walk on the supreme path with a righteous heart. This was what Chu Yang had always firmly believed. Chu Yang frowned, thinking about everything that he already knew. But he also felt that it was full of fog. He couldn't see anything clearly at all, let alone understand. Mo Qingwu stayed obediently beside the two of them, not saying a word. She just looked at Zi Xieching with concern. The sky gradually brightened. Zi Xieching's emotions also gradually recovered. She straightened her back as she gradually returned to her usual self. She left Chu Yang's arms, combed her hair, and said softly, "I'm fine now." Then she stood up. Her expression became calm and determined again, as if she had resumed the image of the strong big sister Zi, cold and tough. Facing the world alone. Only leaving her gentleness for the people she liked. How similar was she to the heavenly emperor of purple clouds who led a lone army to fight against the heavenly demons? In the past, I always thought that I was just a rootless duckweed. Now, I finally have roots. Zi Xieching said calmly, "My parents glory in the past, their heroic deeds, even if they don't stop. But it's only their glory. These have nothing to do with me." Her voice trembled a little. "What I can do is to avenge them, pacify the demons and kill all the heavenly demons. We must kill all the heavenly demons." Zi Xieching looked towards the northeast, where Zi Xiao Heavens was. Her voice trembled but was determined. "Restore my heavenly palace of Zi Xiao." Of course, Chu Yang saw that Zi Xieching's emotions had recovered. He hurriedly teased her and said, "Although my father-in-law is no longer around, the foundation of Zi Xiao Heavens and the whole of Zi Xiao Heavens are naturally left to my wife's dowry. As the saying goes, once you enter my house, you are my family. So Zi Xiao Heavens is naturally mine. Of course, I have to snatch it back." Zi Xieching's face turned red. She said angrily, "Are you asking for a beating? Who entered your house?" Chu Yang laughed. "Whoever answered me is the one. Sooner or later, she has to enter. Why are you embarrassed?" Suddenly, he sighed emotionally and said, "I didn't expect that I, Chu Yang, would be so lucky to find a wife so casually, and she's actually a noble." Before he finished speaking, Zi Xieching and Mo Qingwu had already joined forces. The two women each gave him a kick without any fuss, landing a solid kick on his buttocks, sending him flying out of the room. The melancholy atmosphere just now was completely wiped out by Chu Yang's ugly jokes. Mo Qingwu said jealously, "That's right. Sister Butian is the emperor, even more noble than a noble. Sister Zi is also a descendant of the celestial emperor, a genuine noble. Sister Wu is the daughter of the sect master of Beyond the Heavens sect. In the martial world, you can also be considered a standard noble. Only a wild girl from a small family like me is not a noble." Me. Chu Yang knew that he had made a mistake with his words. He hurriedly smiled apologetically and tried to salvage the situation. He hurriedly coaxed her with a lot of sweet words and mushy terms. Hearing Chu Yang's exaggerated flattery, Zi Sheqing and Mo Qingwu both felt their hair stand on end. They rolled up their sleeves and saw that there was already a layer of dense goosebumps on their smooth and jade-like arms. With a slight shake, goosebumps covered the ground. In the morning, when everyone gathered together to eat, everyone's emotions had already calmed down. Shui Leihan looked at Zi Sheqing eating, his face full of love and comfort. Zi Sheqing lowered her head and ate silently. Shui Leihan suddenly said, "Little girl, be my daughter. You're Zi Hao's daughter. Since you're my daughter, I'll let Godfather protect you in the future. You can do whatever you want in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. Even if he's the son of a saint, you can kill him if you want. It's totally okay." Xueqi coughed and looked at the sky. This bastard. What he said now is really wrong. In order to take in a goddaughter, he actually said that it's okay to kill Master Yun's son. Then he has your nephew. Chapter 24-22. Xueqi thought that if it wasn't Xian Er's children, it wouldn't be a big deal to kill them. But if it was Xian Er's children, then this old man would be killing his own nephews. It was one thing to admit that he had a sister, but, nephews, he still had them. Zi Sheqing said calmly, "No." Shui Leihan nodded with relief. "I knew you wouldn't agree. How can Zi Hao's daughter call someone else father? Even I, Shui Leihan, can't do that. Isn't that right?" Zi Sheqing smiled. "I can call you uncle." Upon hearing her words, Shui Leihan was overjoyed and laughed heartily. His originally smooth chin actually grew a long beard in an instant, making him look like an uncle. However, as he laughed, his beard was blown straight. He said, of course. You can also call me uncle. Ha 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 ha. That's how it should be." Zi Sheqing said quietly, "Actually, I still prefer to call you Big Brother Shui." She blinked and said, "People say that if you marry a chicken, you have to follow the chicken, and if you marry a dog, you have to follow the dog. Although I'm your sworn brother's daughter, now I'm marrying another brother of yours. Of course, I have to follow Chu Yang. Otherwise, I'll drag Chu Yang and the rest of my sisters down by a generation. I can't bear such a sin." Everyone was speechless. They were all shocked by Zi Sheqing's playful and joyful behavior. The usually cold and aloof Zi Sheqing actually had such a cute side. Big Brother Shui? Shui Leihan's eyes widened and he actually stuttered. He was the only one who didn't notice Zi Sheqing's behavior. He was mainly shocked by Zi Sheqing's word. "What? Zi Hao's daughter calls me Big Brother? If that's the case, then I have to call Zi Hao Uncle? You're rebelling." Shui Leihan said angrily, No, absolutely not. How come after 1,000,000 years, my seniority has actually dropped by a generation? Absolutely not. Mo Qingwu said, "Big Brother Shui, how can you say that? Sister Zi is my elder sister. Even if I call you, I have to call you Big Brother, yours doesn't count." Shui Leihan's face darkened. "Mine definitely counts. It must be calculated." Chu Yang calmly came up to join in the fun. "What do you mean by that? It's all your fault." Shui Leihan was furious. With a kick, he sent Chu Yang flying out. "It's all your fault for being so perverted. You didn't reject anyone and accepted everything. Now, you've implicated me and caused me to be demoted as well." Chu Yang covered his buttocks. The pain seeped into his bones, and he shouted furiously, "Shui Leihan, you bastard, just you wait. One day, my cultivation will surpass yours. At that time, I will definitely. Just you wait. When the time comes, do you really have to? Why must it be?" Shui Leihan smiled sinisterly, baring his white teeth as he asked Chu Yang. The look in his eyes was very dangerous, and he didn't try to hide it at all. It was obvious. Minister Chu would surely receive a violent beating if he didn't listen to Chu Yang's words. Or perhaps, he would be brutally tortured. Trample. Seeing that he was about to be violently tortured, Chu Yang instantly raised the truce card. With the strong spirit of a wise man knowing when to retreat, he raised his hand and said, "At that time, I will definitely give you a proper toast. We will definitely get drunk. After all, we are all brothers. Why would we care about such trivial things?" Mo Qingwu and Zi Sheqing giggled when they saw this, their beauty moving. Xue Qi looked up at the sky and muttered, "This spineless fellow." But she had long forgotten that she was far more spineless than Chu Yang when she was facing her elder brother. Humans always have lower requirements for others than they do for themselves. For a moment, the atmosphere was extremely harmonious. Xue Leihan laughed and turned to Zi Sheqing. "Good. No matter what you call me, I hope that you will live well, practice well, and then walk well in this world. No matter what you call me, no matter what happens, you must let me know." It's still the same sentence. Even if you kill Holy Monarch only, Yi Hu, and all the other children, I will take care of it for you. He laughed and said proudly, "The daughter of the heavenly emperor of Zi Xiao was born with such a noble status. Even if Zi Hao is no longer here, as long as Donghuang Shuelehan is still here, she will still be so noble. This point, there is no doubt." Shuelehan said this sentence extremely domineering and classy. Chu Yang nodded repeatedly at the side, and flattered in agreement, "Big brother Xue is right. Big sister Zi is just so noble. Even if Donghuang Shuelehan is no longer here, as long as I am here, no one will dare to bully you. Even if you kill all the sons of Holy Monarch, Emperor 1, and Empress Di, your husband will take care of it for you." Xue Leihan was speechless. What? What do you mean by even Donghuang is no longer here? Are you cursing me to die? Chu Yang hurriedly smiled apologetically. "I'm coaxing my wife. What does it have to do with you? Don't join in the fun." Xue Leihan frowned even more. "How dare you say that I'm joining in the fun? Are you itching for a beating again?" Chu Yang's face turned sour. "Big brother, can't you leave me some face? Your two sisters-in-law are both here." Xue Leihan chuckled. "What kind of noodles do you want? Tell me directly. If you don't tell me, how will I know what kind of noodles you want?" Chu Yang looked like he wanted to cry but had no tears. After a while, he said, "The heartless heavens, why do you have to make fun of me, who is affectionate and righteous?" Ha ha ha. Everyone burst into laughter. Everyone was rather happy during the meal. Xue Leihan finally left a trace of divine sense on Zi Sheqing's body. Although he wouldn't feel anything during normal times, as long as Zi Sheqing was in danger, Xue Leihan would be able to know immediately and rush over immediately. Everyone could see Xue Leihan's determination to protect Zi Sheqing. It was an indescribable desire to protect her. Everyone absolutely believed that if there really came a day where Holy Monarch's son was killed by Zi Sheqing, then regardless of whether it was reasonable or not, Xue Leihan would definitely mobilize heaven cover and fight to the death with Holy Monarch solipsism. Fight to the death. This was Zi Hao's only remaining bloodline. Xue Leihan would definitely not allow anything to happen to her. After this matter finally came to an end, Chu Yang finally asked about another matter that he was concerned about. "I say, how do I go back to the heaven continent?" This matter. Without a doubt, only Xue Leihan had the right to speak. Because among everyone present, even the entire Heaven Imperial Court, Xue Leihan was the most experienced. "You want to go to the Lake of Despair now?" Xue Leihan asked him. "Yes." Chu Yang nodded and admitted. "It's actually very simple. When you reach the East Royal Heavens, I'll open a passage for you." Xue Leihan's face was light. "Back then, in order to ensure that the Calamity Sword wouldn't be leaked, I set up space turbulence in the sky above the heaven continent to block the possibility of powerful forces from entering. If you don't go through the passage, I'm afraid you'll be hurt." Zi Sheqing's eyes widened. "So the space turbulence that almost made me return to my original form was actually set up by you?" Xue Leihan looked embarrassed. He rubbed his hands and said, Yes. How would I know that you would go so recklessly? Besides, I didn't know your identity back then. Please forgive me." Sigh. Zi Sheqing snorted. In fact, she wasn't unhappy. Because it was because of that period of weakness that she met Chu Yang by chance and saw this person who was worth entrusting her life to. From this point of view, it could be considered a blessing in disguise. In fact, from a certain perspective, Xue Leihan could be considered as her matchmaker. Girl, take care of yourself. Xue Leihan and Xue Qi finally bade farewell. In the white snow, Xue Leihan stood with his hands behind his back and said softly, "Girl, your father's purple cloud heavens is still waiting for you." Zi Sheqing bit her lips and didn't reply. She only nodded slowly. Xue Leihan laughed and said, "I'm so happy. 4 millions of years. I finally felt the taste of happiness again. Chu Yang, take good care of my girl. I'm going." He rose into the air and in the blink of an eye, he was already 1,000 feet in the air. Xue Qi shouted, "Big brother, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Wait for me." He jumped up and chased after him. In the blink of an eye, the two figures had already disappeared in the sky. On the quiet snow mountain, Xue Leihan's laughter was still echoing, but he was already nowhere to be seen. Where are we going next? To the East Royal Heavens or back to the heavens? Mo Qingwu looked at Chu Yang and Zi Sheqing. Obviously, Mo Qingwu was happy to see the idea of returning to the heavens. After all, to Mo Qingwu, other than her big brother Mo Tianji, all her relatives were in the heavens. If she could go back, she could relieve the pain of homesickness. Zi Sheqing pondered for a while and said in a low voice, "Chu Yang, accompany Qingwu back to the heavens. I want to go to the purple cloud heavens." Chu Yang was silent for a while and said, "We'll accompany you there first." Mo Qingwu also nodded worriedly. With Zi Sheqing's current mental state, if she were to go to the purple cloud heavens and something were to happen to her, in that place where heavenly demons were everywhere, it was really unthinkable. Zi Sheqing shook her head and said seriously, "I want to go alone." Chu Yang smiled and said, "I said I want to accompany you, not because I'm worried about you, but because I'm really curious about the purple cloud heavens. Besides, that's the place where my father-in-law fought. I have to go and take a look." Zi Sheqing forced a smile. "An." Chu Yang said, "You may not know, but I've inherited the purple cloud heavenly emperor's legacy, when I was in the heavens." He said slowly, "To a certain extent, I'm his successor, or rather, his successor. So I have more reason than you to go and take a look at the purple cloud heavens." Zi Sheqing's whole body shook violently. Chapter 24-23. As far as the rules of the martial world were concerned, the significance of being the successor or the successor of one's legacy was no small matter. In terms of the degree of closeness to Zi Hao, Chu Yang, as the successor, was probably above Zi Sheqing, the daughter. There had always been a saying that the legacy was passed down to the daughter-in-law and not to the daughter, because the daughter would eventually become an outsider. Although this saying was rather unreasonable, it was true. Chu Yang deliberately pointed this out to Zi Sheqing. "I'm not only going to protect you. I have my reasons." And they were sufficient. Chu Yang understood Zi Sheqing's temper very well. If this girl was determined to go alone, then she could really sneak away and no one would be able to find her. Zi Sheqing turned around like a whirlwind and looked at Chu Yang with sparkling eyes. She suddenly took a step forward. "You're saying that you've obtained my Heavenly Emperor Purple Cloud's legacy?" Ever since she was born, she had never called them father and mother. Now, with Chen Liuyun and the Emperor of the East Kingdom, Jun Xue Leihan, both of them had proven her identity and background. Although Zi Sheqing had long believed in it, she had never doubted it. Moreover, she could also feel that she was indeed the daughter of the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud, Zi Hao, and the Goddess of Wandering, Ling Piaoping. But she still couldn't say the simple words "my father" no matter how hard she tried. "It's true," Chu Yang said softly, "my current tribulation space is actually an evolution of the Purple Cloud Pagoda left behind by your father. And the Heavenly Emperor of Purple Cloud left behind countless purple crystal treasures, including holy crystals and even divine crystals." Zi Sheqing's delicate body trembled. She couldn't wait to say, "Let me see." Chu Yang sighed and led Zi Sheqing into the tribulation space. At the same time, he gave Mo Qingwu a look. Mo Qingwu followed behind. Sister Z, wait for me, I want to go in and take a look too. The two girls entered the tribulation space at the same time. Chu Yang sighed silently. Now, he suddenly felt that the responsibility on his shoulders had suddenly doubled. Fighting against the extraterrestrial demons. It was no longer purely for the imperial court and the continent. Now, there was also a personal grudge. The next moment, Chu Yang unexpectedly felt an inexplicable vibration from the tribulation space. It was a violent tremor that almost destroyed one's soul. Chu Yang was gobsmacked. For a moment, he didn't know what had happened inside. Especially when he thought that the two women were inside. Sensing the impending danger, he hastily flashed into the tribulation space. The moment they entered and saw the situation before them, they were shocked. They were completely dumbfounded and did not know what to do. The Purple Cloud Tower, which had completely merged with the Medicine King Palace and the tribulation space, was supposed to no longer exist. At this moment, it separated again and began to spin in the tribulation space. Obviously, it was the separation of the Purple Firmament Tower that caused the violent tremors just now. In fact, it made sense when he thought about it. The Purple Firmament Tower was equivalent to a part of the current realm of tribulation, and its share was quite large. How could the tribulation space not change if it split rashly? As the spinning Purple Firmament Pagoda spun faster and faster, its overall volume grew larger and larger. Slowly, it turned into an indomitable pagoda. The body of the pagoda emitted 10,000 rays of purple light. At the top of the pagoda, a majestic seal slowly rotated. Wherever the purple light from the seal shone, 4 words would appear. Eternal Purple Firmament. At this moment, Mo Qingwu actually didn't know why she was in the room that Chu Yang had prepared for Tai Butian. Now, she couldn't get out and was screaming anxiously inside. Zi Xiecheng was the only one near the Purple Firmament Tower. At this moment, her delicate body was trembling violently. Standing in front of the Purple Firmament Tower, her eyes were filled with tears as she looked at the shocking changes in front of her. Chu Yang was shocked to see the changes in front of him. He was stunned for a moment and didn't know what to do. It seemed that. Was it because Zi Xiecheng's entry made the Purple Firmament Tower feel the bloodline of the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor? But Chu Yang couldn't care less about whether the tribulation space's power would regress or even be destroyed. He only had Zi Xiecheng in his eyes now. He only cared about her safety. Yet, he couldn't go to Zi Xiecheng's side. He couldn't even get close to her. In a place where heaven and earth were shaking. Suddenly, a majestic voice sounded. The bloodline returns to fight the Purple Firmament. Seeing this, I should smile. As long as the heavens don't destroy me, I, the Purple Firmament, I'm proud of life and death, I, Zi Hao. The unusually majestic voice reverberated in the tribulation space. Although it was only one voice, it reverberated endlessly. It was as if millions of people were shouting at the same time. Although no one could see the person, just hearing this voice made one have the urge to kneel down and worship. Then, the voice paused for a moment and sighed. Since you can activate the Purple Firmament Tower, you must be of my bloodline. I don't know if you're a boy or a girl. I can't see. But since you have the opportunity to come here, it means that your mother's and my efforts back then weren't in vain. The heavens bless the Purple Firmament. The heavens bless the Purple Firmament. This voice was full of relief. At this point, Zi Xiecheng couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Her delicate body trembled and she suddenly fell to her knees. She shouted, "Father! Mother!" This was the word that had been lingering in her heart all year long since she was born. But she had never said it out loud. At this moment, she said it so naturally. But the voice was indifferent. It didn't have any reaction to this voice. The voice just now was actually the voice left behind by the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor a million years ago. It could only continue speaking mechanically and couldn't really communicate with people. Zi Xiecheng trembled all over. For a moment, she was overwhelmed with emotions and couldn't control herself. The voice of the Purple Firmament Heavenly Emperor continued, but at this moment, The voice of the heroic purple firmament heavenly emperor became melancholy, low, and tender. Child, you're finally here. I've always hoped that you were a girl. Your mother was very, very beautiful. If you were a girl, you'd definitely inherit her beauty and be very, very beautiful. If you were born a boy, the responsibility you'd have to bear would be too heavy. I once swore to your mother that when you were born, the two of us would definitely wait by your side and let you transform into a human at the first moment. Even if it would exhaust our cultivation. We wouldn't hesitate to do so. It's a pity that I'm destined to not be able to wait until then. Not being able to see your birth and coming to this world with our own eyes is the greatest regret in our lives. My child, I only hope that your journey in this life will be smooth and safe. Now is the time before the war. Purple firmament is about to face the final battle. Your mother and I are praying for you. This is just a prayer. All of our wishes, placing our hopes on the heavens, is the only thing your mother and I can do for you. Speaking of which, we're really incompetent as parents. I only hope that when you know the truth in this life of yours, when you know your background, don't blame us. We can die in battle. Facing hundreds of millions of enemies, we can die with a smile. But, any resentment or grievance you have, regardless of whether we live or die, it's the greatest torture to us. I never blame you. I don't blame you. Xi Xieching knelt on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Next, child, come in. Let me introduce you, our home, purple firmament, and your father's generation that you need to remember, and your brothers and sisters. I hope that you must remember them. Because you have to replace them and live on. Remember, as long as you're alive, you're the purple firmament heavenly emperor, the emperor of purple firmament, the leader of the 450 million brothers and sisters, the flag that will never be conquered. We'll live together with you. You must live well, child. The purple firmament heavenly emperor's voice turned from gentle to impassioned, and then back again in an instant, making one feel dejected. Child, since ancient times, perhaps there hasn't been any other child. There's no need to live as heavily as you do. A person carrying the hopes of 450 million. But we have no other choice. You must know your own name. You're called Xi Xieching. Perhaps in your perception, this name was changed by you on a whim one day. But actually, I've given you this name a long time ago. No matter if you're a man or a woman, this name will belong to you and will forever belong to you. Xi is my surname, Xie, but it's a little extreme. Purple firmament has been fighting for many years, but none of those righteous emperors who claim to be righteous came to fight. Tian Q Saint also refused to send troops. I'm really tired of the so-called righteousness. So, I might as well just name you Xie. As a person. Child, you really shouldn't be too honest. You must remember this, never ever. As for feelings, it's the feelings between your mother and me, and also the feelings of purple firmament. The feelings of purple firmament will be generous and heroic for eternity. Child, you're called Xi Xieching. The purple firmament heavenly emperor was silent for a while, and then he sighed softly. Come, child, your mother has been waiting for you for a long time. Go in and talk to her. Although she can't see or hear you, you can see her after all. This is what I can do for you, the only chance for you to see your mother. Child, cut your finger and use your blood essence to unlock the biggest secret of purple firmament pagoda. Don't use too much strength. Any bit of pain on your body will make your mother and I feel heartache. Without any hesitation, Xi Xieching used her finger as a knife and slashed her index finger. Blood gushed out. The purple mist in the sky surged. The blood that flowed out from her index finger turned into a purple mist and quickly merged into it. Immediately after, the purple fog rolled back and surrounded Xi Xieching's hand. It was as if a gentle mother was bandaging the wound of her naughty daughter who had injured her finger. The door of purple firmament pagoda opened suddenly. Let me tell everyone a piece of good news. The web game adapted from World Defying Heavens has reached the final stage of research and development. I can also tell everyone that it's currently being done by the famous 37 Games company in the industry. Under their sincere invitation, I've also taken on the role of the game's worldview architect. I'm just putting my name on it and then giving suggestions. It's actually just a professional criticism. I'll let the game's plot revolve around the original novel and carry out a reasonable adaptation. Currently, there's a plan in the game to let players play the role of the Swordmaster, similar to Chu Yang, collect the Sword Calamity, and conquer the heavens. Of course, the new expansion pack will gradually release more plots and other extensions. Everyone can pay more attention to it in the future. I'll also share with everyone if there's any other progress. Of course, for the male compatriots who wish that you can have 4 female confidants and stunning beauties by playing the role of Chu Yang. If there's really such treatment. I'll stop writing books long ago. I'm willing to do that and die. Chapter 24-24. A purple mist gushed out. After the door of the purple cloud pagoda opened, it actually transformed into an extremely cozy room. Among them, a beautiful woman was looking at herself with an uneasy expression. She kept asking, "How is it? Is it okay? I don't know if the child will hate me like this." As she spoke, she actually started to cry. My poor child. I actually have to use such a method to see my parents. I really want to hug her, kiss her. Suddenly, she exclaimed, "You've already started." Then, her expression suddenly changed. It became affectionate and sentimental, but also infinitely warm. "Child, I am your mother." As soon as she said this, the woman's eyes turned red again. She tried to hold it in and choked with sobs. "I don't know what you look like. Do you look more like your father or me? Mother can't see you, mother." Zi Sheqing looked at the woman in front of her in a daze, but didn't dare to move at all. Although it was just an illusory image, Zi Sheqing felt infinitely warm in an instant. The moment that gentle face appeared, she felt her heart throbbing. "This is my mother. My mother loves me more than anything else." This kind of thought and feeling naturally emerged. Zi Sheqing, who had never felt all these, was instantly filled with happiness and satisfaction. There was also sadness and bitterness. Although she knew that her mother couldn't see her, she still wanted to smile and let her see. But once the corners of her mouth moved, the tears in her eyes flowed down uncontrollably. A kind of extreme bitterness and sorrow rushed to her heart. For a moment, she just wanted to cry out loud. But she didn't dare to cry out loud. She could only cover her mouth tightly and look at her mother without blinking. She let her tears flow freely. To see her mother, this was the only chance in this life. She was afraid that if she moved carelessly, she would destroy the settings of this space and her mother's figure would disappear immediately. So she didn't dare to move at all. She just looked at her in a daze. At the same time, she told herself, "This is my mother, the mother I've never met. I have a mother too. I'm not an orphan. I'm not an abandoned child. My mother loves me more than any other mother in the world. Child. I missed you so much. Mother really missed you so much." The woman couldn't help but cry. Her beautiful face was full of tears. Beside him, the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor's voice was somewhat helpless as he reprimanded, "You. Control your emotions. What do you look like? Wouldn't that make the child even sadder?" I couldn't help it." The woman sobbed. She cried, "I want to see my child. I want to tell her that I love her. I really love her. I've dreamed of seeing her for a long time. I've always wondered what our child would be like. How should I love her? How should I teach her? How should I coax her? How should I coax her?" Since she was a child, how should she change year after year? I thought about it for a long time. But now, I can only let her see an image. She has never even felt the warmth of a mother's embrace. Mother's body odor. If other people's children can do it, why can't our children do it? Zihao. Why? That tearful accusation was actually not an accusation at all. Although this question was filled with grief and indignation, it also revealed heartfelt helplessness. This question made the purple firmament Heavenly Emperor, Zihao, let out a long and deep sigh. "Child. The woman finally managed to control her emotions. Perhaps, it was Zihao's sentence of increasing the child's sadness in vain that had a decisive effect. Child. Don't blame your father. Your father may never be a good husband or a good father in this life, but he is an absolutely competent heavenly emperor. Your father is a hero. So he is destined to bear much more responsibility than ordinary people. For the purple firmament heavenly emperor, your father has already racked his brains and exhausted his heart's blood. She took a deep breath. Actually, your father loves you very much, child. Your father is indomitable. Your mother, I, can only accompany him. Standing on the ground and supporting the sky, there is no turning back, no regret. In the image, the beautiful woman turned her head and looked to the side. Presumably. At that time, Zihao was waiting by the side. Because Ling Piaoping's eyes were filled with tenderness. Child. You have grown up until now, but you have never felt your mother's existence. The woman was choked with sobs. She paused for a while before saying, Mother is very guilty. I have let you down. In the room next door, there are things that Mother has prepared for you. This is your father's purple firmament pagoda. As long as you personally come, you can open this hidden secret and obtain the things inside. The things inside were all made by Mother for you. Child. You must be happy, you must be happy. Mother doesn't have much time left. There is still a lot behind. I need you to remember. I don't know if you like the things Mother made for you. And the clothes. If you are a boy, I made the clothes according to your father's figure when you grow up. If you are a boy, you will definitely be like your father, an indomitable hero. I really hope that you are a boy, firm and full of tenderness. If you are a girl, I prepared the clothes according to my figure. You should be taller than me, right? Because your father is very tall. Child. Remember to put on some clothes. Mother really wants to put on the clothes for you personally. Go, child. The woman's image froze at that moment. But before it froze, tears flowed out continuously like a fountain. She pleaded, Let me say a few more words to my child. Zi Sheqing looked at her in a daze and muttered, Mother. Mother. The image changed again and turned into another room. Zihao's voice sounded, This is what your mother left for you. Child, you must always remember that you have a mother. Your mother is the best mother in the world. She has already prepared everything for you. In this room, there was really everything. There were countless clothes, from babies to grown-ups, and clothes that changed from spring, summer, autumn and winter. The left row was for men's clothes, the right row was for women's clothes. Row after row, there was almost no end in sight. There were also countless cultivation techniques, from easy to difficult, from entry-level, basic, entry-level, high-level, pinnacle, and pinnacle cultivation techniques. There was everything. The only similarity between these cultivation techniques was that their quality was ridiculously high. To say that they were top-notch was an understatement. There were also countless toys for boys and girls to play with. Some were exquisite, some were grand, and some were warm and cute. Any child who saw these toys would laugh heartily and forget all their troubles and worries. As long as an ordinary child could have it, it was here. What an ordinary child couldn't have, it was also here. It was all-inclusive and had everything. In the innermost position of the room, there was a table with a thick stack of letters on it. Zihao's voice sounded, Child, these are the letters your mother wrote to you. She recorded in detail what you need to pay attention to in your life. Everything is recorded in them. You can read them in the future. Since the beginning of this battle, when my request for reinforcements was rejected for the first time, I had already expected that the saint would not send any reinforcements to Zixiao Heavens. Although I had also tried to send out guards to request for reinforcements, I had always had an ominous feeling in my heart. From then on, your mother had started to prepare everything. She had been preparing until today, child. Zi Sheqing's gaze was fixed on the letter and she could not take her eyes off it for a long time. There were so many letters, there were more than 1,000 of them. She wondered how much time her mother had used to write every single word. A woman in white seemed to appear in front of her eyes, sitting in front of a desk, writing these letters word by word. As she wrote, she cried. After writing these letters, how many tears did her mother shed? She looked at them in a daze. There was a feeling in her heart, if time stops here and doesn't change, I will be satisfied, but whether she was willing or not, the scene was already changing. One by one, there were people appearing and disappearing here. These were all Zihao's surviving relatives at this point in time. Zihao's voice said, "These are all the members of our family. Those who are still alive for you to see. The others have already died on the battlefield. The descendants of the Z family have never been afraid of battle, never of death. Outside, they are having a decisive battle. Child, let me bring you out to see your uncles. They are all my brothers." Then, the scene changed again. The background had already changed into a big square, with many flags. The wind whistled, the sky was filled with clouds and fog, and the sounds of mountains and tsunamis rose and fell, shaking heaven and earth. The moment Zihao walked out, all the sounds stopped at the same time. There was silence. Only the whistling of the wind remained. "Brothers." Zihao's heroic and powerful voice suddenly sounded. At this moment, it actually became fierce and high-spirited, mixed with a strong murderous aura and boundless battle intent. "Today, we have a decisive battle tomorrow. Regardless of whether we live or die after tomorrow's battle, as long as we are here today, Zixiao Heavens is still in our hand. Slaughter all the extraterrestrial demons." Zihao was the first to roar. Below, there was a loud roar. "Slaughter all the extraterrestrial demons. Zixiao Heavens is ours. Ours. Revenge. As long as there is one person left in Zixiao Heavens and one breath left, we must fight to the end. There are no traitors in Zixiao Heavens. We can only perish together. Zixiao Heavens only has glory." Zihao raised his arm and shouted, "Fight." Countless people shouted together, "Fight! Fight!" Chapter 24-25. In the boundless sea of people, more than half of them had injuries on their bodies. Some were light and some were serious, but everyone had a stern expression and resolute gazes. There was actually no despair here, no decadence. There was only intense hatred and a strong will to fight. This was undoubtedly a mighty army of iron and steel. Just by looking at this scene, no one would have thought that just one day later, millions of heroes here would forever sleep in purple firmament. "Brothers, everyone knows." Zihao's voice became cheerful. "I still have an unborn child. And now, I've already sent him out. Our purple firmament still has descendants, hope, and a future. Good." There was a deafening cheer. Someone shouted, "Let the little prince take back purple firmament in the future." Someone else muttered, "How do you know it's the little prince and not the little princess? You can predict the future." Immediately, laughter shook the sky. "Today, use time to freeze everyone's words here. At the same time, let your nephew or niece look at you uncles in the future and remember all of you. Remember purple firmament. The purple firmament that belongs to all of us." Zihao roared, "Even if he's not born now, he's also a member of purple firmament. Remembering all of you is his responsibility and also his honor." When Zihao's words came out, there was suddenly silence below. "The purple firmament that belongs to all of us." Zihao let out a long howl. Turning his head, he instructed habitually, "Lengyu, starting from you, first with your nephew," or, halfway through his words, he suddenly paused. His lips were also trembling somewhat. Someone at the side said softly, "Protector Lengyu has already died heroically in battle." Only an inaudible sigh was heard from the purple firmament heavenly emperor, but his face immediately returned to being cold and hard. He said loudly, "Lengyu is no longer here, then we'll start from you. Whatever you want to say to your nephew or niece, say it directly." Many years later, when he sees this scene, he'll definitely be proud of all of you. He'll also be proud of his father, because I have all of you. Purple firmament has all of you. When purple firmament was at the end of its road, all of you were with me. We faced death together. Zihao's voice was already somewhat tired, but it was still filled with that kind of arrogance that looked down on the world. When he was not talking to his own child, when facing the world, he was only that invincible heavenly emperor of the purple firmament. A figure slowly walked over. The newcomer was a middle-aged man. He silently stood there for a while and said softly, "Child, don't forget, your father is a hero. We all admire him from the bottom of our hearts. Ha, boy, when you see me. Don't you think he's really handsome? Get lost. Child, look at me. I'm your Uncle Yang. I've already killed tens of thousands of skyscraping devils. In the entire purple cloud heavens, other than your father, I'm almost the only one. Stop bragging, it's getting dusty. Child, don't listen to him. He's always fighting and killing. What kind of person is that? Child, this is what Uncle wants to give you. When you get it in the future, you must learn it well. Why would the child of His Majesty the Celestial Emperor care about your little things? Watch me. Good boy, when you grow up, you must be like your father and be a hero. Child, live well. One by one, people walked over, spoke and then left. However, no one mentioned war or life and death. Instead, they were all relaxed and calm, trying their best to say some light-hearted and humorous things in the way they could think of. In the face of an unborn child, everyone was doing their best to take care of it carefully. Zhi Sheching's eyes were glistening with tears as she pursed her lips. He carefully looked at each person, trying his best to memorize each and every one of them. Finally, someone walked forward. He looked like a rough and fierce person. Someone beside him reminded him softly, "This. Old Black, be careful, don't be too intense." This man who looked like a chimpanzee nodded. He walked forward and stood there for a long time, but he didn't speak at all. After a while, his lips moved and finally, as if he had exploded, he squeezed out a sentence. "Child, you must remember, when you grow up, you must kill that bastard Master Yun to avenge your father and everyone in the purple cloud heavens. You must kill that fake Saint Emperor." Before he finished, someone beside him scolded angrily. "Bastard, get lost quickly. What nonsense are you talking about? Let me do it." Then, this rough man was kicked out by others. Then, another person squeezed over with a face full of smiles. "Child, don't take it to heart. That uncle of yours is actually a lunatic. We don't even know who Master Yun is. And that Saint Emperor, he's not a good person at all." Obviously, these men who were about to walk onto the battlefield, the iron-blooded warriors who were about to walk on the last journey of their lives, were not thinking about leaving hatred for the child. Instead, they hoped that the child would live well, even if they didn't want to avenge him. One by one, they walked forward. However, there were still too many people. There were millions of people, it was impossible to let everyone show their faces. Therefore, while there was still an endless stream of people here, there were already deafening shouts. "Child, you must live well." This roar seemed to have reminded even more people. Wave after wave of loud roars gradually merged into one. "Child, live well. Don't worry about anything. We have no regrets from birth to death. For the imperial court, we have no regrets. We have no regrets following His Majesty. Child, all of us will pray for you. Live well, live happily." From the beginning to the end, the two words "live well" appeared the most frequently. And live well was second only to live well. These heroes knew that they would die in this battle, so they really realized what was the most precious thing in this world. First, it was to live. Then, it was to live well. The majestic and intense drumbeats suddenly sounded densely. The whole world seemed to be trembling. Everyone's face became fierce and determined at the same time, because the time to go to war had arrived. The voice of the heavenly emperor of Purple Cloud, Zhi Hao, suddenly sounded. A loud roar shook the sky, almost completely scattering the dark clouds in the sky. Formation. The sound of the bugle horn sounded. Follow the previous deployment. Go to war. Zhi Hao roared. Eternal purple cloud. Eternal purple cloud. Everyone roared in unison. After today, they didn't know if they would be able to roar this slogan again. The loud sound directly stirred up the dust on the ground. In the distant mountain, There was a rumbling echo. In the image, groups of people and horses rode out neatly. They waved and left just like that. No one turned back to take another look. In the image, Zihao's tall and majestic figure stood just like that, watching his soldiers walk out one by one. His face was cold and his gaze was cold and sharp. At this moment, he was no longer the loving father from before, but a cold-blooded and merciless commander. The rumbling sound became more and more distant. The image pulled further and further away. There was a huge gate in the distance. This gate was really big. It was 10,000 feet tall and tens of thousands of feet wide. There were 3 big words on it: Purple Cloud Pass. A clear and anxious voice sounded. "Let me go over." Zi Xieching heard and her delicate body shook. Mother, a beautiful figure in white suddenly appeared in the sky. Her figure was slim and her white clothes were as white as snow. Her white clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. There was a sword in her hand, and the cold light was shining. But Ling Piaoping's gaze only looked there. Her eyes were full of obsession and longing. Her red lips opened slightly and tears flowed down her face. She muttered, "Child, forgive mother. Mother is going to accompany your father. Child, my child, my child." In the image, she stretched out her hands, as if wanting to hug her child. But her arms were only half open. They stopped in mid-air. Tears gushed out crazily from her eyes like a broken dam. "Mother's biggest wish is to hug you and see how you look like." Ling Piaoping looked here pitifully. Her eyes were full of powerless longing. "Go to battle." Zihao's voice was hoarse and strangely nasal, as if he was trying hard to suppress some kind of emotion. But he still gave the order resolutely. His voice echoed in the air. That burly figure had already rushed into the sky and held Ling Piaoping's hand. His back was facing this side. One could faintly see that his thick shoulders were trembling slightly. Was he crying? But he didn't turn around in the end. He only left a tall and straight figure for his child. A figure as broad as a mountain, as if it was going to hold up the sky. So indestructible. So dependable. "Let's go," Zihao said hoarsely. "Child." Ling Piaoping screamed sharply. Then, Zihao pulled her and they flew out at high speed. She, who was flying at high speed, was still stubbornly heading towards this side. She was pulled further and further away. His white clothes fluttered, his black hair danced. That pitiful gaze, that longing, and that final figure seemed to be wedged into Zi Xieching's heart. That pitiful cry was still echoing, but the image suddenly stopped. Zi Xieching was shocked to see the image disappear. She took 2 steps forward subconsciously, as if she wanted to retrieve the image that had disappeared. But she only heard Zihao's tired voice. "Child. This is the last battle. The other party's 3 great heavenly demon kings have already arrived. I won't let you see the battlefield. As for your mother," Zihao's voice was a little choked. He suddenly stopped. After a pause, he said, "I can only tell you. In the Purple Cloud Heavenly Army now. I'm the only one left." Chu Yang and Zi Xieching were shocked. Only one person left. That was to say, at this time, those countless heroes and Zi Xieching's mother, Ling Piaoping, had all died heroically. Chapter 24-26. Zihao's voice was still going on. 130 million extraterrestrial demons have all turned into dust in Purple Cloud Heavens. And I am still fighting, and I will continue to fight. You must remember. No matter what, do not forget the pride of Purple Cloud Heavens. As long as there is one person left, we can continue to fight. As long as there is a breath left, we must continue to fight. Child, at the last moment, let me sing a song for you. Your mother has always wanted to sing for you, but Now, let me sing this belated song for you. After a moment of silence, Zihao's hoarse voice sounded. His singing was not pleasant to the ears, and his voice was also extremely hoarse. However, Zi Xieching was listening to him seriously as if she was on a pilgrimage. Purple Cloud Heavens, Purple Cloud Heavens, this is our home, this is our land, our paradise. Who dares to invade? He must come and not return. Zhi Hao sang softly, as if there was no one around. He sang this song with all his heart and soul. Zhi Xieching's tears flowed down her cheeks, but she did not dare to make any sound. She did not even dare to choke, for fear that the slightest sound would disturb the singing. This song belonged to her father, and she would only have this one chance to hear it in this lifetime. One could hear that the surroundings of the purple cloud heavenly emperor were unusually chaotic. And he had also said just now that he was the only one left in purple cloud heavens. In that case, what was the thing beside him? The answer was obvious: extraterrestrial demons. Purple cloud heavenly emperor. Surrounded by millions of extraterrestrial demons, as if there was no one else around, he sang a song for his child tenderly. Although what he sang was actually still a battle song. But that intense fatherly love seemed to have crossed the long river of time and arrived here. In the image, the surrounding noises suddenly quietened down. A voice that was so strange that it did not sound like a human's voice said, "Zhi Hao, purple cloud heavenly emperor, we are here." Then, Zhi Hao's voice exhaled softly and said, "Child, farewell." Then, he said softly, "Purple cloud tower, I hope you can wait for my child." Then, suddenly, all the sounds began to leave. This should have been the purple firmament heavenly emperor's ultimate technique that reversed the universe at the last moment to make the purple firmament pagoda leave him. At that moment, a faint long whistle sounded from near to far, but it was filled with a sense of heroism. In the end, it completely disappeared and returned to nothingness. But if one thought about it, one would know that it was definitely the purple firmament heavenly emperor's final battle cry. Although the duration was very short and it almost vanished in an instant, in this moment, in that instant, Chu Yang's blood boiled when he heard this long roar. What kind of crazy fighting spirit was that? This aura. It only belonged to Zhi Hao. It only belonged to the purple firmament celestial emperor. The scene finally ended. The doors of the purple firmament tower opened quietly. There was no one inside. Waiting for Zhi Xieching to enter. Zhi Xieching was in a daze for a while. Suddenly, she burst into tears. "Father, mother, don't leave me." There was no response from the purple firmament pagoda. There was only silence. Chu Yang felt that his face was wet. He reached out and wiped it. Only then did he realize that his face was already overflowing with tears. Zhi Xieching was exhausted on the ground. She looked at the purple firmament pagoda that had already opened. But she had no desire to enter at all. Perhaps, she was not looking at the purple firmament pagoda that had reappeared, but the scene that had already disappeared. Her father's figure had disappeared. Farewell was eternal. She would never see him again. So what if there were countless treasures in the purple firmament pagoda? There was no father or mother in there. So what if she went in? Since there was no meaning to her, then what was the point of going in? Zhi Xieching, who gradually recovered her thoughts, suddenly felt a sense of loss. At the same time, as her heart became more and more upset, there was also a surge of strong and bitter happiness. I finally saw my father and mother. There were also many elders and friends. It turned out that I was really not an orphan. I had a home, relatives, old friends, a hometown, a country. Zhi Xieching was obviously smiling, but the tears in her eyes kept falling down. "Let's go in." Chu Yang came to her side and said softly. "Go in? What's the point of going in?" Zhi Xieching smiled sadly. "They're not in there anymore." Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, "They're not in there anymore. Or should I say, they never existed in there." This sentence was undoubtedly very cruel. Zhi Xieching felt a burst of anger and looked at him fiercely. Chu Yang completely ignored the beauty's ferocious gaze and continued without a pause. "Everything you saw just now, from the beginning to the end, was only an illusory image, a completely unreal image. But, from this moment onwards, everything you see after entering the Purple Cloud Tower is real and not illusory. Those are the real things that your father and mother left for you. They will truly accompany you through your whole life. From those things, you can find the aura that your father and mother left for you. Which aura is what you should really cherish. Chu Yang said softly. Zi Xieching's body trembled slightly, and her lifeless eyes suddenly glowed with a little vitality. So, those are the real gifts that they left for you. If you don't accept them, don't feel their aura and feel their sincerity, even if they die, they will feel regret, Chu Yang said solemnly. I'll go now. Zi Xieching suddenly stood up. Vigorous vital energy surged all over her body. She waved her hand to stop Chu Yang from continuing. She said softly, yes, you're right. That's the real thing that they left for me. And those letters are the real memories that my mother left for me. At the mention of those letters, Zi Xieching suddenly had an impulse to see those letters. With the end of the shadow image and the opening of the purple firmament pagoda, the tribulation space had already regained its peace. At this time, Mo Qingwu also came out of that room, pouting unhappily. When the purple firmament heavenly emperor was talking just now, Mo Qingwu was actually completely blocked out. She had no power of autonomy at that time, and that feeling was really too depressing. Fortunately, everything was over now, and that confining force also naturally disappeared along with it. The three of them entered the purple firmament pagoda, and the moment they entered, Chu Yang was violently shocked. The purple firmament pagoda had changed too much after the transformation. It was directly an infinitely vast space inside, and the large space also contained small spaces. All kinds of materials were dazzling, and everything that one could think of was there. Weapons, armors, from weapons used by children to divine weapons used by adults, martial techniques and inheritances, elixirs and spirit medicines, heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Everything that one could think of could be found here. Just like that, they looked through room by room, and the shock in their hearts became more and more intense. And all of this was prepared at the last minute when Zihao was almost at the end of his rope, and it could already be considered as a treasure trove that had everything one could think of. If a celestial emperor deliberately prepared it during his prime, how exaggerated would it be? That was really something that no one could imagine. Zi Xieching touched and played with them one by one, with a doting smile at the corners of her mouth, but her eyes were filled with tears. Each and every one of these cold things, in her eyes, was filled with a strong sense of fatherly love, a strong sense of motherly love. She looked up at the sky, seemingly crying and laughing at the same time, crying and laughing at the same time. For a moment, she really felt that her spirit was somewhat hysterical. It was a hysterical surprise, warmth, and also a hysterical melancholy, and missing, endless missing. Father, mother. Thank you. Thank you for preparing all of this for me. Zi Xieching closed her eyes and thanked them wholeheartedly. It's all of you, all of this that you left behind, that really made my life complete. At the last moment of my life, all of you are still so considerate of me. I really feel that I'm no longer lonely, no longer wandering. I'm also someone who is missed and cared for. At first, Zi Xieching was very anxious to find those letters that her mother wrote to her, but as she looked through room by room, her mood gradually calmed down. All of these were prepared by her father. Perhaps her father's love was not as direct and gentle as her mother's, or even full of dominance. But it was this dominance that made Zi Xieching feel the happiness of being disciplined by her parents. Chu Yang, say, if my father was still around, would he hit me when I'm naughty? Zi Xieching tilted her head and asked, with a face full of reverie. He would definitely hit you hard. Chu Yang said with certainty. She really didn't know where his confidence came from. He would hit you until you couldn't take care of yourself. Humph. Zi Xieching snorted. Mo Qingwu chuckled. Chu Yang doesn't understand at all. A father may hit his son with a stick, and it's also possible that he would beat him to death, but towards his own daughter, he would never be ruthless. At most, he would just reprimand a few words. He would have to think for a long time before saying a harsh word. How would he hit you? Chu Yang rolled his eyes. How do you know this? Has your father ever treated you like this? This sentence instantly offended the two women at the same time. Humph. Mo Qingwu and Zi Xieching snorted at the same time, turned their heads and walked forward hand in hand. Finally, they reached the room where the letters were left. That room was at the very end, at the very end. It was a big room, or more accurately described as a big warehouse. When the three of them walked to the door, Zixing seemed to have a premonition of something, and her delicate body trembled slightly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,